All right, it's Caley Wilson here in New Zealand talking with Jared Thompson in Las Vegas, coming at you with a second edition of The Other Side, our weekly show taking a look at what's happening in terms of the fast-changing dynamics within the media and sports media especially that we're seeing around the world from use of Blinder, our remote interview platform that is working with a lot of the world's leading teams. I'm going to jump straight into the New Zealand media because if people have followed our journey, they will know that sports and entertainment is where our technology has come from. But in the last fortnight in particular, things have rapidly swept into the mainstream media. So if you live in New Zealand and you have watched the news recently, you have seen Blinder. Blinder is working with Television New Zealand. Blinder is working with MediaWorks, who produce TV3's News Hub shows. We are working very closely with NZME, and we're also working increasingly with Sky Sport. So if you look across a whole lot of the New Zealand media at the moment, you are seeing Blinder interviews crop up in places from business news such as Liam Dan and Adrian Orr, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, speaking with New Zealand Herald, through to some of the beautiful and very important interviews that Moana Maniapoto is doing with Te Ao with Moana on Māori television on Monday nights. So the technology, as I said, has come from trying to make things seamless to connect athletes in the media. It's now connecting anyone in the media. So if you work in general media and you're taking a look at this for the first time, please do dive on in. Jared, that's a little bit of a hit on what's happening in New Zealand, but what's going on there in the States?
Well, I'd say that, what's happening here that I see is a lot of people are starting to get comfortable with, the world we live in now. And, there was a week and a half of, oh my gosh, what do we do? How do we remote work? How do we produce content? To where now it looks like everyone's kind of in a good rhythm and a good flow. And a lot of our partners are actually making strides in terms of not just producing content and not just having new things to see, but having really interesting, marketable things to see. We've had a couple of smaller, I shouldn't say smaller clients, but smaller schools that are clients that have really landed some pretty big and interesting guests. For instance, Richmond University had Joe Lunardi on its Webcam Chronicles series, and Joe's an ESPN personality who specializes in men's basketball selection bracket. And they had a nice conversation about what was kind of occurring as they got to where they were supposed to release that bracket, but yet the tournament was getting postponed. Texas Women's University had a conversation with the NCAA vice president about how operations going and student athlete relief and really significant matters. And those are two things you wouldn't normally expect, the smaller school one to be, in line to cover, but also just comfortable working with. And I think us having that frictionless technology, an easy way to hop on and off a call with somebody and get a video of it, has really made those things really accessible. Had a conversation with Jeremy Zalaka at Lenore Rhine, talking about some of the things they've done that have been pretty innovative. They've got some really cool ideas coming up. We'll have a little bit of that conversation later in the week, but one of the things you want to pay attention to is some of the things they're doing to please their sponsors, which I think will have some really beneficial long-term effects. And there have been a lot of coaching changes as we've gone into kind of the off season now for athletics, and the Mountain West Network has really done a really good job of being the first to get in touch with those new coaches, because there aren't press conferences anymore. Teleconferences are still hard to do remotely, but the Mountain West Network with Blinder has been able to quickly, get a contact information for a coach, do a quick video and have their host shoot it. And that's been really cool. So those are a few of the things that I've seen here, is just people going back to business as usual, using this new technology to make sure they stand above the competitors.
Nice. Speaking of standing above competitors and innovating, one of the loveliest things we've seen in New Zealand in the last week is Sky Sport working with the New Zealand Rugby Union and the Investec Super Rugby teams to deliver Isolation Nation, a show that they've pulled together in very short time with Sky Sports hosts, including one of those is Israel Dag, a former All Black, speaking with a number of current superstars of the game, such as Bowden Barrett and Geordie Barrett, his brother, and TJ Perenata and Aaron Smith and so forth. That show has come together completely remotely, so all of the Sky staff are working remotely. The rugby players are scattered around the country, and people they're speaking with are scattered around the world. But if you'd like to take a look, we'll include a link within this post to see Isolation Nation. Second edition episode of that has just come out last night in New Zealand. but they are putting out 2 shows a week, half-hour shows of sort of fascinating conversations with their star talent around the country, and that's happened really rapidly. We talk about innovation within sport. Leeds Rhinos, we mentioned last week. We caught up with Phil Daly during the week. Thanks for your time, Phil. And he shared some insights into what that club is doing during these challenging times to stay really connected with their fans. He spoke specifically about Brad Dwyer, the mental health challenges Brad has faced, and why they thought it would be a great idea for him to grab the reins with the Dogcast podcast series that Brad is steering. And Phil also opened my eyes to the work that they're doing through Adam Cuthbertson, who's a little bit older, very broad interests as a human being, I would say, Adam, and he is speaking with people connected with the Leeds Rhinos club, but who aren't necessarily from rugby league. So one of them was Matthew Lewis, an actor from the Harry Potter series. Another one, Josh Warrington, IBF boxing champion. Adam's going right out there into different spaces and having fascinating conversations. So Leeds Rhinos kind of setting the pace for how you can stay really tightly connected with your fans during a very challenging time.
Yeah, it was really exciting to watch those and to check out what Leeds is doing among some other clients. I've got to say, it's been really fun to watch everybody kind of, when they build their content, one, be more comfortable. Even Isolation Nation, it was kind of the content you wouldn't normally see. It feels like an Instagram show or a reality TV, but it's in the news. So it's got a little more truth and edge to it than you would otherwise see in something that's highly, polished. And Ruby Tui going through her closet and showing us pictures of her family and those things was amazing. And the kind of content and stories you don't normally get with a highly produced production. And I just think it's a bit about, just having that phone in the palm of your hands kind of feel, as it's so natural and it's so warm and engaging that it's really cut through a lot of the stuff that we've seen before.
Do you want to have a chat with us about how universities like the Richmonds and Texas Women's and so forth that Jared has mentioned are making their content? Lenore Ryan and the phenomenal work that Jeremy Zalaka is doing there. Please do get in touch. And if you want to have a chat about how Sky Sports has pulled together Isolation Nation, we're here to have a conversation on that too. For me, Jared, unfortunately, the neighbour has fired up the lawnmower now, and that's probably thought I'd time the run between the finishing of the chainsaw and the start of the lawnmower, but the window's gone. So thanks so much for the stuff you're doing over there, mate, and we will catch up with everybody next week.
Yeah, you don't want to be asked to help do any landscaping right now. So take care. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Jared.